Welcome to Adventures in Alchemy, a podcast filled with witchy tips and true stories to inspire your magical life. I am Michelle Martin Dobbins, the creator of Daily Alchemy and the Adventures in Alchemy podcast. This podcast is supported by the Daily Alchemy Premium Members Lab. I don't run a Patreon, so I keep membership at a very economical $11.11 a month. For that, you not only help sponsor this podcast, but you will receive access to 14 alchemy courses, and we add a new course each quarter, access to Reiki Level 1, 2, and Master's training and distance attunements, plus a library of audio distance Reiki healings, monthly alchemical experiments, PDFs of all my books and planners, and 15% off of everything else I sell. Also, there's a members-only Facebook group, so we can chat amongst ourselves in a private community. So when you join, I do ask that you commit to 3 months, since you are able to access and download all of the content immediately. It's $33.33 for the first 3 months, and then $11.11 every month after. I am so grateful to all the premium members who support my work, and I'd love to have you as a premium member too. If you're not already one, you can go to DAPM Lab, that stands for Daily Alchemy Premium Members Lab, dapmlab.com to check it out, or there'll be a link in the show notes. Now, on with the show, and may it be a blessing to all who listen. Hey there! Today we are going to talk about magical resources. And magical resources are just basically the same thing as other resources, except for they're resources that involve magical elements. And I'm sure this seems strange. Well, I'm not sure, but I guess it might. But for some reason, resources is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Just has come up for me in a lot of studying that I'm doing on certain topics about how we as people, we have certain resources, but when we're stressed or when things go awry, which usually creates stress, but sometimes we lose those resources that we have. And so when we're stressed or when we need help or when things are going wonky and don't feel good in our lives or we're in danger, that's the time that, if we can, it's real important to take a breath, take a moment, and collect whatever physical and mental resources we have, and also to look around and see what obviously physical resources we have and what magical resources we have. You know, magical resources, they're just like physical and mental resources. They help you function effectively in the world, or even deliciously in the world, right? We want to enjoy life. We want to be able to soak up all the good stuff. So the resources are there, not just actually for the times when we're stressed and we really need them, but also for the times when we just want to enjoy life on a deeper level. So, you know, like as far as physical resources, I mean, we all know we have our health, our ability to think. I guess those are like our bodily resources, the fact that our body functions, we can think, we can be present, all those things that sometimes leave us when we're sick or we're stressed or we're scared. And then we have physical world resources, which are like money and time and helpful people and just objects like a stove, whatever. So oftentimes I think that we forget as practitioners, whatever kind of practitioner we are of magic, be it law of attraction, alchemy, witchcraft, whatever term you use, sorcerer on high, we sometimes forget that we have magical resources at our disposal when we need to use them. And so I'm going to give you guys some tips to become more aware of the resources that you have, and also to see if there's like a hole or a gap in the resources you have so that you can fill in with some resources of magical types so that you have them when you need them. So because as above, so below, right? As in the mundane world, so the magical world, they overlap. So it's helpful in all cases, right, to cultivate resources before you need them. That doesn't mean that you can't cultivate them when you need them, but it's really nice if you have a savings account and your car breaks down, you can fix it. But if you don't, you can go out and sell something and get some money to fix the car, whatever you have to do, right? But I think we would all agree that it's nicer to have a certain amount of resources in place before you need them. And honestly, as we go through our day to day life, especially in the modern world that we live in, there are a lot of resources that can be helpful just every day on our daily alchemy path. So, and especially, obviously, one of those is relationships, right? So if you happen to be friends with a person in power who can help you in a situation, that's awesome. But trying to become friends because you need help right now, it's not probably going to pass the smell test with that person. They're going to know that you don't really want to be their friend. You just want help. And it's the same with like spirits. I mean, if you're going to reach out to some deity and say, I need your help right now, and they're like, I don't know who you are. Just the same as if you tried to call up the president and you didn't know the president. That might be a bad example. But a person in power who can help you is not going to help you more than likely if you haven't cultivated a relationship or don't have some kind of connection to them. But, also, if your cause is very good, sometimes people in power will help you because of the purity, maybe, of your cause, or the feeling that it's really something that would benefit not just you, possibly. So let's talk about the types of magical resources. And this is not a comprehensive list. This is just the list that came to my mind as I've been scanning through my life and other people I know that are really helpful. You might have some more. And if you have some more, feel free to shoot me an email or a message and add some more to the list. Okay, so first one is healing techniques. The second is divination techniques. The third is spirit relationships. The fourth is rituals and spells. And the fifth is journeying and meditation techniques. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into each of these because you might be thinking now, I don't do any of those, but well, you probably aren't thinking that, but you might have someone here that you don't think you do and you actually do. So let's start with healing techniques. Of course, one of my favorites is Reiki. It's one that I tap into a lot. It's part of my daily practice. It's just been a habit since I learned it. And I guess it's just been a habit doesn't seem as important as it is to me, but it's one of the things that really makes a difference in my day-to-day life. Another one that I've been working with over the past 3 or 4 years slowly is plant medicine. And some people get the thought of plant medicine that doesn't necessarily mean, I guess it doesn't even have to mean like tinctures and healing herbs, although there's so many of those, but plants have healing properties. And, just working even with like a simple tea made from a plant, especially one that's local to you, can be so healing. But there are so many ways, right? I mean, plants and food are some of our first and most basic medicines, and they serve us well in many cases. Just going to put that disclaimer out here that you need to do your research and really check in. And if you have under a doctor's care, make sure that what you're using as far as plant medicine is safe and good for you. Another type is folk magic healing. There are people who work with Bible verses and all kinds of things, kind of perform little spells to heal burns and heal warts and all kinds of things from these kind of old, like Appalachian or deep south of the US techniques. I know they do that in other parts of the world too, because I think most of those techniques came over here from Europe and Africa and other cultures and countries. So some other things that I would put under the umbrella of healing techniques are release techniques, because they can heal physical ailments. I know people who have healed colds using this, and people who I've heard secondhand stories of people who have healed asthma and all kinds of things using some of these release techniques. And so, like that would be EFT tapping, the Sedona method, Psyche, and there's so many forms of energy healing, and I don't know a lot of them because I just love Reiki so much that I haven't really focused much on other forms of energy healing. So I know there are bukus of them out there. And I'm going to talk about so many different things today that I'm not going to probably give you links to very many. I did put one link in though, the show notes so far, but I may add a few. But if I put a link for everything I mentioned, it would just be like a huge show note of links. So if something strikes your fancy, you can always Google that. So yeah, lots of healing techniques. And while healing techniques don't necessarily take the place of going to the doctor, if you need to go to the doctor and have conventional medical care, definitely do that. But they're a great supplement. And for, if people who are in good health, they may not need as much conventional care if they're doing a lot of these other healing techniques. That being said, obviously, no judgment either way. Please take care of your health. But I've found these to be very, very helpful in a lot of situations. So, moving on, divination techniques. I'm kind of guilty in this area of using divination more for when I am out of sorts than when I'm in sorts. And one of the things that I want you to know, or concepts that I think is important, is for us to use all these techniques like before we're in trauma or before we're in deep need of them. Like Reiki, if you're doing Reiki daily and then you're sick or you're sad or something's going on, that Reiki can be supportive. You're going to be a better Reiki practitioner if you've been doing Reiki daily. Then you're going to more likely have positive results from doing the Reiki. But that doesn't mean that you can't just, if you haven't been doing it and something happens and you need it, pull it out for sure, But practice builds skill in magical and mundane, right? Okay, so divination techniques, tarot cards, and all kinds of oracle cards. I think those are one of the most popular ones currently around the parts where I live and the people I connect with. Bibliomancy is one that I enjoy quite often. And that's just, it can be done with a Bible, but it can be done with any book where you ask the question and you open the book and you point to the first paragraph or, what's on that page to get your answer. Pendulums, using those for yes, no, maybe type things. Scrying. And scrying is just like the act of looking in a crystal ball or a black mirror. I have like a flat circular piece of black tourmaline. I think it's tourmaline that's smoothed where you can kind of get into a trance state and see what you see. Muscle testing is kind of a form of a divination technique where you're testing to see if something is good or not for you, and yes or no, and those kind of things. So there are the runes, throwing bones, doing I Ching, geomancy. So there are so many tons of divination techniques, and you can even create your own. One that I actually did put a link to in the show notes because it's one of my favorites right now because I like working with tarot cards and different oracle cards, but sometimes sometimes I'll just keep pulling cards because I didn't get the answer I wanted. But it always keeps giving me the same cards. They're so smart. But anyway, you can, there's a lot of, you can interpret it in different ways. And so I do use those a lot, though, if I have a nuanced question. But if I have a yes, no kind of thing, I find that I am a cheater when it comes to pendulums and muscle testing. Sometimes I feel like I kind of push it to go one way or the other with my mental thoughts. So I really like working with just like 4 cowrie shells, and you toss the shells and you get your yes, no, maybe, and strong yeses and really strong no's. So it's much harder to cheat. I don't think I've figured out a way to cheat with a cowrie shell toss. And in some traditions, they actually work with, I think, 16 cowrie shells, and each ones have different meanings and stuff. And those are things that people are trained to do. But if you want to do a simple 4 cowrie shell toss, I think it's a really nice divination technique. I keep a little bag with 4 cowrie shells in my purse. So anytime I'm just like, yes, no, maybe, what do I do? What is going on here? I pull those out and throw them. And it's just handy because, like I said, when it comes to pendulums and muscle testing, if I'm doing it for somebody else or something like that and I don't have any skin in the game, then I feel like they're pretty accurate. But if I have skin in the game and it's something that I'm like wanting to go one way or the other, I feel like I can be a cheater. Okay, so moving on. Stop talking about me and my failings here. Let's go to spirit relationships. This covers so much. And as I said at the beginning, like, the time to cultivate spirit relationships is before you need help, right? Just like in real life. It's just, if you come to a spirit of any kind just because you want help, like, most times that's not necessarily going to move them. And a lot of the things that we work with in the spirit world are going to be even more less likely to be moved than a human to help you, because they see things from a different perspective, right? We are here in this, like, the time situation, and things seem urgent to us. Well, they're not going to seem urgent to a planetary deity. Our little piddly problems, they know, are just a moment by moment thing in most cases. So you want to really decide to have a relationship and build a relationship, cultivate a relationship with a spirit. And spirit might not be the best term, but just any, maybe I should say, non-physical being. So, like, for me, some of the categories of that would be a deity of any kind, planetary deity, or just, there are so many deities and so many different traditions. And then, ancestors, I consider in that realm. Also, plants, animals, land, even crystals. And crystals, I forgot to put in healing techniques, but working with crystals could kind of go into a spirit relationship. And you can also use working with crystals and crystal healing. I don't know why I left that one off, because that's when I actually went and got certified to become a master crystal healer. So let's see. Yeah, but so my thought is, decide to have a relationship with a deity or an ancestor or plant or whatever, because you have an affinity for that spirit. Because, if, just like you choose your friends, you choose them because it's an energy that you want to be around with, that you want to connect with. And if they, have a certain skill set that can be helpful to you. Why is Liam Neeson coming up in my mind? I don't know. He's the guy from those movies. He has a certain set of skills. That's great too. But just, we don't want to be people who are just in it for ourselves and just using others. And, that goes for other people here in our world, and it goes for non-physical beings as well. Can you do both? Yeah, but in the long term, is it really going to play out that well for you? Probably not. I'm a big fan of working with ancestors because they have skin in the game, right? They are linked to you. Their DNA is linked to your DNA. And, there's that thing that when you go so far back, almost everybody's related, which I still think that's a beautiful and wonderful thing, that we are all connected in this world in some way. So, but ancestors, especially those who are in the kind of the recent dead, your healing is their healing is your healing. I've talked a lot about in other podcasts about Daniel Foor's work in ancestral medicine. And I have found profound results myself in my life by working on healing my ancestors. And so if you're looking for a place to start, I feel like that's a really good place. And I think I'm going to be adding to it, but there is a class in the premium members lab for daily alchemy that is an ancestor alchemy class, just a nice basic introduction. But I think we did it like a year or so ago, and I've done so much more work and really deep into my practice that I need to probably go in and add more and update that class a little bit. Planetary deities are great. Animal spirits, plant helpers, land spirits. Sometimes our friends get us through the hard times and they can be a great resource. And if you make friends with folks or entities or beings in the spirit realm, that's just another resource for you. I know for a lot of people that's really strange, but it works. And I don't know. I personally think that the way most people live their life is really strange, being really disconnected from the world in which we live and all the things that are going on, like just our earth, our planet, and the plants and the animals and the non-physical beings amongst us. I just think life is deeper and richer when you connect with that. But that being said, different people have different ways they do things. I'm a person who, like, in my day-to-day life, I tend to have less amounts of really close friends. Some people prefer to have a lot of more acquaintances. So, think about that for yourself as you're developing your plan. I work with my ancestors a lot. Other than that, I work with one saint a lot. I work with one other deity a lot. And then I work with a group of deities in another tradition. And that's about it for day-to-day relationships. And I think that sometimes you can get too many so that you don't have deep relationships with any. And the deep relationships are where I see the most change in myself. So, on to rituals, spells, and manifesting techniques. I kind of lump a lot of things under this. And I do a lot more day-to-day practices than, like full out rituals and spells. But honestly, I mean, there are so many things that I consider rituals and spells. And I usually do a simple ritual, at least on the full moon and the new moon. And a ritual is something that does take a little bit more time to me. There are steps involved, but you can create your own rituals. You can do rituals from other people. I like the Seven Spheres by Rufus Opus, where he gives you rituals to connect with the planetary deities. There are a ton of places to find rituals and spells, and also I think ones that we create ourselves are very powerful. Ones that lots of other people have done have that energy too, so they're very powerful. So you can do whatever feels best to you. And I also put like vision boards and affirmations or incantations or intentions setting in this kind of category too, because manifesting techniques, to me, like, there's not much difference between an affirmation and a spell. I think they're kind of the same thing. It's just like, the thought where they're like every thought is a prayer. And to me, like, in a way, every action is a spell. So there are things that we're that we're doing. And when we do them intentionally, it's a nice resource for us. And that being said, I think a lot of people who run in magical circles will not do a ritual or a spell or a manifesting technique until they need something specific. Now, there are a lot of us who've been doing like spiritual alchemy techniques and law of attraction methods where we're daily working on acquiring something that we want by saying affirmations or looking at our vision board or doing scripting and prayer and journaling or different things like that. And I think it's really good to do that on a daily basis. And I know like charming is kind of a thing like that. And I learned about a little bit about that from Ariel, who does some classes online, and he stepped away from the online world. And I hope that he's coming back. I'll look and see. Maybe I can put that in the show notes because it's a really, really good podcast episode where he gave a talk about charming your life and going through and charming your wallet and charming your food and stuff. And it's kind of like, for me, I do a lot of that with Reiki, like Reiki my wallet, Reiki my food, whatever works for you. But doing those things on a daily basis, it builds up a skill set and a mindset that is going to help you when your other resources are low and when you really need it. Okay, so next one is journeying and meditation techniques. Like, to me, this is one of the most important things that you can have in your magical tool belt. And there are so many of these, right? And they are, for the most part, an acquired skill. So, people who say they can't meditate, that's like saying you can't do taekwondo, right? You have to go in there and learn the basics and do it step by step and practice it to learn how to do those skills. That being said, obviously, like some types of meditation work better for some people than others. Some people do really well focusing on a mantra and repeating that in their mind. Some people do really well by doing like a slow motion, mindful walking meditation. Some people, just like to sit and quiet their mind and feel the sensations in their body. There's so many ways. I know the class in the Premium Members Lab, I think there's one that has like 14 or 15 different methods of meditation that you can try. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So don't think that you can't meditate. You can, but you just need to practice and learn and find a way that works good for you. So to me, journeying is only slightly different from meditation, but to me, it's an important distinction and it's important to have both. So this is just my definition and how I see it. Other people might have a totally different thought on this. But to me, the main difference between journeying and meditation is that in meditation, you're mostly quieting the mind, focusing on a mantra or guided audio. It's more yin, more yielding. To me, journeying is when you want to alter your state of consciousness to travel on a metaphysical journey, usually with a goal in mind, be it connecting with an ancestor or healing a trauma or getting an answer to a question. It's more yang, more actively seeking a result. So those to me are like the big differences. And whereas sometimes I might journal about something that came up in a meditation, it's usually going to come up after the meditation. But if I'm doing a journeying exercise, my journal is going to be right there beside me because I'm going to want to write down everything I saw and heard and experienced, because sometimes the answers come back to me when I'm writing it later. And when I'm journeying, I'm expecting to have an experience. When I'm meditating, sometimes experiences come, but I'm not trying for that. I'm just trying for peace. So if you don't know a lot about journeying, it's one of the other differences between journeying and meditating. Like, I think when you meditate, you often have a shift in your state of consciousness, but journeying, you kind of alter your state of consciousness at the beginning to go on the journey. So people do that in a variety of ways. I think a lot that we hear about is people doing it with drugs, with ayahuasca. I don't know if ayahuasca is really so much for journeying, more of a plant medicine maybe, but there's like peyote, and I don't know. Maybe some people use LSD. I don't know. I don't recommend you doing that unless you're in a place where it's legal and you have a guide that you trust that knows what they're doing. Don't just decide to like do something like that willy-nilly, because you don't need that. It can be good for certain people in certain circumstances, but you can shift your consciousness with music, with dance, with drumming, with being out in nature, especially if you're outside in the dark, or just, even like laying on the grass. And one big part of it is intention. And with practice, you can train your brain just like you can train it to get quiet and meditate, and it's a skill. You can train your brain to shift in and out of other states of consciousness at will. And just like meditation, it might come easier to some people than others, but it is a skill and it can be learned and practiced. And especially if you want to do a lot of journeying work, you're going to want to learn how to do it without probably mind altering drugs. No judgment on those who use mind altering drugs to do that. But for me, I like to do journeying practices. I usually do one at least every Tuesday and sometimes on Fridays, because those are my like main magic days. Tuesdays I work with my ancestors, and I also work with Saint Marta a lot. And so on those days, I am still like doing I still have one line that I'm working on healing. So I'm doing a lot of journeying to work on that. And obviously, I'm not going to like take something that would alter my mind and then be going out later in the day to pick up my kids from school. So it's, usually what I use on those days is drumming audios in my headphones to help me shift. And, along with just the practice that I've practiced doing it before, and I have that intention. And, your body kind of gets to know too that when, oh, the drums are on and they're beating in my head and I'm sitting in the dark and da da da. And so it's just like with those of you who've done meditation, and if you have a time and a place that you meditate, it gets easier and easier because your body knows, oh, she's in the meditation space. Your brain knows, oh, she's in the meditation space. Same thing with journeying. So it doesn't have to be like this really weird way out there thing, it can be. So yeah, those are the 5 main categories of resources that came up to me. And I think, having your own bag of tricks, tricks to help you on your day by day journey is just really helpful in life. And the one key to me, is to remember that you have them when you need them. As those of you who regularly listen know, I'm kind of going through the grieving process for my stepson right now, and my mental resources have not been the best. That's one of the things that has brought the word resources and the need for resources up to me, because I left my wallet in my office. Then the next day I left my purse at my house. I was driving to the office and turned the wrong way and started driving to my house. So I turned back around and then I went the wrong way again. So it's like my husband and I are both noticing that we're just like doing like crazy things, forgetting things and going to the wrong place and doing the wrong thing. And it's because we aren't fully resourced right now, because a lot of our resources are going to that part of our brain that is dealing with the loss that we've had. And we all have situations like this, right? Day to day, like stressors that come along in life, or things that take up our resources in our brain. And so it's really, really good to have a list of resources. And honestly, like I haven't done this with a list of resources, but I did it with one like resource once. And I'm trying to remember, I carried it in my wallet for years. And it basically was just a card that said, if you're feeling upset, and things aren't going your way, or you're out of sorts, if you're feeling bad, it just means you and your higher self are not aligned or something like that. And for the longest time, that was something that, like, if I got upset, I was like, oh, myself and my heart, I would pull out that card and I knew it was there in my wallet. So you can even make a list of resources in your wallet, or you can make, just take a card and write, like, these are the things that I can do when I need help. These are the spirits I can reach out to. These are the prayers I can say. These are the affirmations I can say. These are the healing things that I know. These are the divination techniques I can know. So write those down, put them on a sheet of paper, a note card, put them in your nightstand, put them in your wallet or something, so that when you're in a situation in life and you're like, I need help, I need something, you can look at that and see if there's something on that list that can help you. I know for me, I was like just having these aches and pains. I wasn't sleeping. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I haven't been doing a lot. I get in and out sometimes with the practice of giving myself Reiki at night when I'm going to sleep, self Reiki. And I was like, that is making, just when that came back to me. But sometimes I think when we're not resourced, we forget our resources. So make a list, make a list. And then when you make that list, you might see, oh, I don't really have any divination techniques, or I don't really have any healing techniques, or I would like to have some more techniques for meditation or journeying or manifesting than I do. So then you just start with Google, or reach out to friends, or I'm here for you. We have the premium members lab, and there's always a link in the show notes where you can go and you can join that. It is super inexpensive, $11.11 a month. And we have classes in there on ancestor alchemy. We have scripting, prayer and journaling. You can get Reiki attuned and certified. There's classes on meditation techniques. There's so many classes. I think there's like 14 or more. And then we add a new class and a bunch of other stuff every quarter. So that is a resource that you can put on your list. So I'm going to give you your experiment for this month's episode. My ADHD brain sometimes forgets the experiments. And oftentimes, if I do forget an experiment for an episode, I'll put it in the show notes because sometimes I forget when I'm recording. So one is make a list of your magical resources. You probably have more than you realize. Then decide on one new magical resource you'd like to acquire, right? Look over that list and see where you're light, and then take some daily action steps towards acquiring it, one little baby step a day. And then don't forget to use some of your magical resources daily, right? Some resources diminish as we use them, and some only grow as we use them. And magical resources in general only grow as we use them, right? The more you meditate, the more skill and more results you get from meditating. It's not like a $20 bill. When you spend it, it's gone. Although I love Joe Vitale. He does the thing like, the more I spend, the more I have. And he sets up those intentions and beliefs that money keeps coming to him, and money does love to be in circulation. So spending $20 on something that brings you joy and brings more resources to the person you give it to could actually bring more resources back to you. But, just like, eating a cookie, the cookies, that resource of the cookie is gone and the energy is expended. Of course, I'm going to get my thing into a source where I'm like, well, then that energy is going to create other energy. So I'm just going to stop there. But use your magical resources daily. And then number 4, track your outcomes in your Moon and Magic Planner. If you don't have one, I still have a few available. You can get to the Daily Alchemy website and you can find the link to get those. Or your Book of Shadows or whatever journal that you use, because sometimes we don't realize how much a difference using these skills that we have and these resources that we have makes. All right, guys. So until next time, let's be change-making descendants, future exalted ancestors, and let's live magically in the now. All right. Big love to all. Talk to you soon.